But I thought I had a massive concussion. Even though there was nothing on my X-ray or nothing on my MRI, I was like, man, I must have got a really bad concussion, and maybe I'm done. I can't box anymore. I mean, because I had so much symptoms. I really didn't know at the time, honestly. The first 6 months was the lowest point. All of it. Every day was like the worst day of my life. I remember waking up, all these symptoms, and I'm like, I cannot do anything. Like, I feel horrible. Like, nothing made me feel comfortable at all.
Hey everyone, I'm Sean O'Connor, author of the Depersonalization Manual, and today I'm speaking with Chiara Dituri from Brooklyn, New York. Chiara is 30 years old and a professional boxer, currently number 4 in the world in Super Featherweight, and she's also a physical education teacher in New York City. Chiara developed chronic DPDR triggered by, as she says, anxiety from overwhelming myself with too much on my plate. Her symptoms included visual snow, severe fatigue, and an out-of-body feeling. DPDR put a temporary pause on Chiara's incredible boxing career, but fortunately she has since made a complete recovery. And as she wrote to me in a recent email, quote, I just won my 9th professional fight and I'm number 4 in the world. I personally believe I have a great story to tell and it could be a huge motivation for a lot of people, end quote. And Chiara is with us today to talk about her experience with and recovery from depersonalization disorder. Chiara, you're very welcome to the channel. Thanks for being with us today.
Thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
Yeah, it's a pleasure. Chiara, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yes. So as you stated, I'm a professional boxer, and I'm also a New York City school teacher. Just back to regular life. And I just wanted to spread my story because I know like other people's story has helped me in the past when I was watching your videos. So I just want to pay it forward, and hopefully I can help somebody as well. So.
Fantastic. So number 4 in the world is seriously impressive. Can you tell us some more about that?
Thank you. Yeah. I've been doing martial arts since I was 6 years old, and then I transitioned to boxing during COVID. I turned pro during COVID, and before my whole incident with this experience, I was 5-0 undefeated, and I guess like about a year and a half, 2 years later, I was able to continue my career, and now I am number 4 in the world.
Fantastic. And what kind of teaching do you do?
I teach physical education and health, high school level.
Wow, the kids must love you.
They do. They love me. They look up to me and they respect me. So it's a great job. Honestly, I love it.
Fantastic. And are the bouts that you have, Chiara, are they primarily in New York, or are they kind of around America, around the world, or where's that?
All over. I fight all over. Yeah.
Do you?
I mean, recently I've fought more in New York, New Jersey, and Manhattan area, but it can be anywhere, honestly. So, yeah.
Wow. Fantastic. That's so cool. So Chiara, can you tell us a bit about your experience with DPDR and how did it start for you?
Yeah, so in 2022, February, that's when this whole thing, everything kind of started out. But I was fighting. I had a big fight in February. It was my first fight in New York. I remember that. So I had a lot of pressure of like my family's coming. I had to sell a lot of tickets because that's the side of boxing. You have to sell tickets as well. And I was main event, so I was the last fight. It was like a lot of first times for me. So that made me like extra nervous, a lot of pressure. I was also working in the school, like during COVID. I was wearing the mask all day. So I just had like a lot of stress during that time. And I remember prior to the fight, I had like little incidents of like DP, which I didn't know it was DP. Like now I know, or after reading up on your manual, I knew. But just like the blurry vision and the what I thought like panic attacks. So I kind of ignored it, and I went on. I think I had it about twice, where out of nowhere I'll be around my house, and then I had like the racing heartbeat and things like that. And I didn't think anything of it, so I went through with my fight. And then after the fight, that's when everything kind of went downhill, and I've just had an array of symptoms. Yeah.
So what was that period of time after the fight like? Was it, did the symptoms kind of happen quite quickly, Chiara? Did they kind of increase over time?
It was 2 days after where everything just came at once. I had a massive panic attack. I remember, I think the night after my fight, like massive. And then the next day, it was just full on DP. Um, but the thing about my situation is I also had a concussion with it. So it was like a concussion plus the DP. And I think the concussion exacerbated the DP symptoms. I'll never actually know for sure, but that's my theory. So, yeah.
So you got a concussion during the fight, is that correct?
I did, yeah.
Okay, and then did you go to hospital about the concussion, or what's the protocol for someone who gets a concussion during a boxing match?
Well, the thing is, you don't. I didn't go to the hospital right away because you can have a concussion and like doesn't mean that you have a brain bleed. Like for example, like there's different kinds of concussions. Concussions usually just take time. So yeah, I think I did go to the hospital and there was nothing on it. But I still had the symptoms. And like I said, 2 days later is when all my symptoms came on. So the blurry vision, the fatigue, the nausea, I mean, everything you could think of at the same time. So, yeah.
Okay. And did you initially think, Chiara, that all this was happening because of the concussion, or did you assume that it has something to do with the panic attack, or was it somewhere in between?
I had no clue. I was so confused. I want to be honest. Like, I didn't even know what to think, which made it even worse because that leads to like more anxiety because you don't know what's going on. But I thought I had a massive concussion. Even though there was nothing on my X-ray or nothing on my MRI, I was like, man, I must have got a really bad concussion and maybe I'm done. I can't box anymore. I mean, because I had so much symptoms. I really didn't know at the time, honestly, until I did like more research. Yeah.
Yeah. So can you tell us some more about the symptoms you were experiencing, Chiara?
Yeah. So at first, my entire vision was just blurry. And everything looked like I was like looking through like the way I explain it, a magnifying glass, because everything was so zoomed in and I could only see one thing at a time. And it was so strange to me. I was like, what is going on? Like, what did I break my brain? I had no idea. And then the fatigue. So I couldn't even like walk a block or anything without feeling horrible. Like I just couldn't. But then I thought that could be a concussion too. So I didn't really know what was going on. And then I had visual snow. So I had like static across my entire vision. Anything you can think of. I think I had every symptom in your manual. Let's just say that. Every symptom I had at the same time. Yeah.
Yeah. And so how did you try and get medical help for it, Chiara, or did you just start researching it, or what was that like?
It was a process. So like at first I went to like almost every doctor you could think of in New York City. And most doctors were just like, yeah, you got CTE, you got a concussion. No one really knew about depersonalization until I met one doctor. His name is Raymond Purcell. He's New York City. He's a functional neurologist who we're very good friends now. He actually comes to all my fights. He supports me. And he did the research on it. And he was like, yeah, you have depersonalization. He was like, no, your concussion's healed, because it was like a month or two in. He goes, you don't have a concussion anymore. He was like, if you're still having these symptoms, he goes, you have depersonalization. And he's like, there's no actual cure for it. I can't do anything to make it go away. But he said, see a therapist, and then I found your manual. So yeah.
So how long did it take you to get that diagnosis, Chiara?
I would say like 6 months, honestly.
Wow.
Yeah.
So what was that 6 months like for you? Were you still training, or were you working, or what was life like?
I was not functional at all. I took a leave from work for about 5 to 6 months. So I couldn't teach. I couldn't see. I mean, how can I work if I can't see? My vision, it wasn't just a little blurry. It was completely like distorted. Like I cannot see at all. I was extremely sensitive to light, like extremely, and sound. So I just couldn't be around people. So I was home for 5 months. And then the only person I went to go see was my doctor, Raymond Purcell. And we would do just like exercises and things like eye exercises. Obviously, that's not direct, like there's no therapy for depersonalization. But for me at that time, it helped me because I could see somebody and I felt like I was being helped. It was like a support. And he did help me with a lot of things. He helped me get back into boxing. And he kind of like built me up to like, oh, start jump roping, start jogging. And like little by little, I built myself back up. So there were a number of people that helped me in the process, but like I said, I didn't find your manual until like 6 months later. So yeah.
Now, what was it like communicating with the boxing community, Chiara? Were you able to explain to people what was happening? Did they understand it, or how was that?
I didn't explain anything. I didn't even say a word. Because I was like, you know what? I'm gonna sound crazy. Like, I didn't even tell my coach, which is a big problem. Like for me, like I had it in my head. I wanted to tell him, and he was like, "Oh, you ready to fight? You ready to fight?" Like, because he didn't know, but in my head, I was like, "I'm not ready." I was like, "I can't, and I can't fight mentally, physically. I just couldn't." But which later on, I believe like a year later, I called him into my doctor's office, Raymond Purcell, and we all sat down together, and my doctor explained depersonalization, what's going on with me. And actually from that day on is when I started healing, ironically, because I believe that it's a thought process. I feel like with DP, a lot of it is your negative thoughts in that loop. And I feel like once you start detangling all those thoughts, all those doubts, that's when your healing journey starts. I mean, that's my theory at least. Yeah.
I remember for me, when I developed DPDR, I mean, the idea of exercising was kind of went out the window. I mean, even going for a walk felt impossible. So I felt that I had lost all the benefits of exercise on top of everything else. And but I can only imagine that for you, like an actual professional athlete, like that something like that must have been even more acute, must have felt even more difficult.
It did, yeah, because I was in the gym, and little by little I got back into the gym. It was baby steps. I remember the first day I went into the gym, I only stood for maybe 10 minutes. It was just overstimulating. I just couldn't, with all the people, the sounds. Like I said, I was sensitive to sound. Couldn't really see that well. Very anxious. So, and then like little by little, I stayed an hour. Then I stayed a little more, and I worked out a little more. It was like a progression, a little by little. But yeah, and every time I was in the gym, I remember I was like, please don't ask me when I'm going to fight again. Please don't ask me when but that's just the nature of boxing and being a pro fighter. Everyone would come up to me and say, oh, when's your next fight? When's your next fight? And every time someone asked me that, I was like, it would make me more anxious because I didn't know. I really didn't know, So, yeah, definitely.
Were you teaching at this time as well, Chiara?
I couldn't go back. I didn't go back to work until 5-6 months later. But I only went back to work for the last week of school since it was the end of the summer, and I started fresh in September.
It's interesting to me as well that, I mean, for me, I developed DPDR back in 2005, and this was in the south of Ireland, and there was so little information available on it. But it's interesting for me to hear this for yourself and living in New York City, and this was like 2 years ago, that it still took you that time to be able to find an answer for it. But I'm also delighted that your doctor was able to diagnose it and then and refer you to a therapist. Is that correct?
Yeah, he did. Yeah. Like, get a therapist, because he, based on the research that he read, he was like, yeah, you need someone to talk to because it's anxiety driven. And he was like, if you want to go back to boxing, he's like, this can happen again. So you need to develop some coping mechanisms so that it doesn't happen again. So he kind of like guided me. So it was nice. And here I am.
Okay. What was your lowest point in the whole experience, Chiara? Is there a specific time or moment that sticks with you?
The first 6 months was the lowest point. All of it. Every day was like the worst day of my life. I remember waking up, all these symptoms, and I'm like, I cannot do anything. Like, I feel horrible. Like, nothing made me feel comfortable at all. So that was my lowest point, feeling like I have no control over what I can do. It was just like a waiting game, because I feel like, your nervous system is like oversensitized. So and I feel like that takes time to heal as well. And kind of like, as time goes by and you calm yourself down, I feel like your body starts to heal. But that took a long time for me. So yeah.
I remember thinking that my experience was like because I was working towards starting a career in film, and I felt that when DPDR happened to me, it was like a rug that I didn't even know was there had been pulled out from under me, and my career, like, I mean, I couldn't go to the bathroom without having a panic attack, like, not to mind
Yeah,
directing a set of like 50 people, but
exactly.
I think that just when I hear your story, Chiara, just that, especially because I'm delighted, so happy that you're back on track with your career, but that you were so clearly on the way to this success and kind of building up the victories, and then that just like comes to a screeching halt all of a sudden, and just dealing with the psychology of that must have been difficult.
Yeah, I would say, like I said, the hardest moment in my life, and I'm a pretty strong person. I can take a lot, but this was the only time in my life where I felt like I just can't do anything, and I was like, and I don't even know, like the unknown was what really bothered me. The lack of research, the lack of people knowing, it just makes it worse. You know what I mean? So, um, yeah. So I'm really glad that the people that I met on the way. I also saw an eye doctor, obviously, um, and I did go to eye rehab. Is there a name for it? I have no idea.
Like
Is there?
an optometrist.
Yeah, but I did like some rehab and stuff like that. And I was like, all these eye exercises, and I'm like, but something's off. Like I can't like feel outside of my body. Like, and I explained it to her. But I did go that route as well. I saw all the doctors. I spent thousands of dollars. And like I said, it was only a matter of time until like I found your manual and really knew what was going on. So yeah.
How did your recovery start, Chiara? So once you got to the therapist, I guess once you understand that there's a name for what you're experiencing, that's a big stepping stone. And
Yeah.
what was the path like after that for you?
My recovery started, I would say, about a year in, where I really felt like I was starting to get better. Um, I was back in public and socializing because I didn't socialize at all. During the first 6 months, I just couldn't. But and then like little by little, I feel once I got my therapist and started talking to him. Um, about a year and a half in, I feel like I was back to my regular life, and I feel like um the best thing for that was to set some goals and really be engaged in your hobbies. I always felt like during this recovery time, I was like, I'm not going to go back to boxing until my symptoms are gone. And I just kept waiting and waiting and waiting when it's the opposite. I was like, I'm going to go back to boxing to get rid of my symptoms. And once I did that is when all my symptoms started getting better. That kind of makes sense. So I think I had the wrong mindset. And once I changed it, that's when I started getting better. Yeah.
Yeah, certainly. I had a similar experience with I wanted to go to college and or go back to college and do a master's degree, and I kept thinking to myself, well, I'll wait till I'm better to do that, so unless I've
Right.
got all these symptoms gone, that's when I'll be able to do it. But that's not how recovery works. Recovery is you start pushing through those barriers, and then
Right.
once you focus your attention away from the anxiety, that's what gives your body and brain the permission to start letting these feelings go. And the therapist that you were seeing, Chiara, were they an anxiety specialist or DP specialist, or was it just a general therapy?
It was a general like social worker, but he's I like him. I'm very comfortable. I've used him a lot in the past, and he's like, you gotta find someone you're comfortable with, and he's the only person that I would talk to and see. So, if any advice, find someone good. So find someone you're comfortable with.
Yeah. So tell me more about getting back to boxing and
Yeah.
getting back to teaching. So how was the process of moving away from the condition? Did the symptoms kind of fade away slowly over time, or was it a faster process, or how was that?
You just forget, and then once you forget and you're engaged in everything, like people and the things that you do, you just forget. But it's not that easy to just forget. Like I said, you need to find a hobby or something that you really are engaged in. Like I said, so once I told my coach about when I sent my coach to my doctor and explained it to him. That's when I started recovering because he understood and he knew what was going on, and I felt, so much better. And then I think a month later, I was like, "Listen, set up a fight, just set it up." Because I knew once it's set up, my entire focus is going to go on that fight and not on my symptoms. So I told them, just do it. And then from there, I recovered. So, yeah.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's absolutely right. Once your point is in the right direction, at least it's just once you're on a path. Like I think this is one of the most frustrating things about DPDR and a lot of anxiety-based conditions is that like you think that. I mean, I remember for me thinking that like if I had any other condition, like if I had like if I developed like pneumonia or something, like okay, I go to the hospital and there's a specific set of instructions that I follow. There's medications that I take, there's procedures that I have to, whatever, But with this, it was just like, you're just lost. I was completely lost, like,
Yeah.
But I think that as you were saying, Chiara, like having a goal in front of you, even if it's a couple of months down the line or whatever, then that starts to point you in the right direction. It just puts you on the path towards recovery. And you realize that the reason you were lost was because you were so intensely focused on the feelings of anxiety and DPDR, and you were just kind of stuck in the same place because of that. So, Chiara, how was the DP manual helpful in your recovery?
It gave me guidance. I loved it, like step-by-step guidance, and when I was in doubt or felt negative, I would reread it. It would make me feel better. I would re-watch recovery videos, and it just kept me on track. Because you want to hear positivity. Because obviously, when you're going through this, all you're thinking is negative. So you need to stay around positive, whether it's the manual, whether it's people, support, everything during this recovery. You need to be around positivity, and that's what that helped me with. So yeah.
So now that you've recovered, Chiara, a question that people always ask me, can you really get back to normal?
Of course, yeah, you get back to normal like nothing's ever happened. But you get back to a better normal because you feel like, for me personally, I feel more gratitude towards life. And I also, small things that happen to me, I'm like, this is not a big deal. I mean, look what I went through during those 6 months. So a lot of the small things in life that happen, I'm just like, this is not a big deal. I went through way worse. So, and another thing is you learn to be more compassionate towards, people with depression, anxiety. I remember like people would say, I'm depressed. They'll be like, oh, just go to the gym. What do you mean you're depressed? Just, snap out of it. But it's not that easy. And I've learned that during this time to have that mental block. So I feel like now I'm way more understanding of when people say like, I just can't. So I get it, where I didn't get it before.
Certainly. For me as well, back in the day, when I heard of people who had anxiety or depression, I'd be just like, well, you're obviously doing something wrong, like, or you're not, you're not doing, as you said, like, just go on exercise and put yourself out of it. Yeah. It's not that simple. No, and also just how overwhelming and just kind of random it can be. It doesn't. I mean, to a great degree, it doesn't really matter what kind of lifestyle you live. Like, you can always. I mean, everyone can have a panic attack, and that's what triggers these conditions. And it's so going through the experience certainly gives you a much greater sense of humility and compassion for people who are going through something similar. So, Chiara, what advice would you have for people who may be going through something very similar to what you had gone through? What advice would you have for DPDR sufferers?
My advice is to know and genuinely believe, it is temporary. Everybody can get back to normal, but you do have to put the work in. So whether it's finding a therapist or obviously following your manual, but also you want to surround yourself with support. I think that's very important. I think that helped me the most. Friends, whoever you have in your life, You want to surround yourself with positivity, and that's just going to help you even more towards recovery. And like I said, and I stressed during the interview, find a goal or a hobby or something and just set it. Don't even think twice about it. Just set it. And you'll see how it'll help you during the recovery and kind of like, I guess, give you another focus.
That's great advice. Chiara, what's your day-to-day life like at the moment? So being back to normal, are you the busiest woman in New York?
Yeah, I am one of the busiest. I'm just getting ready for another fight. That's all I do is fight, fight, fight. But yeah, I'm getting ready for another fight the end of September in New Jersey, and I'm getting ready to go back to work. It's just regular. You could just go back to regular life, and I would say it's better, honestly, better than prior to having DP. So, like I said, I'm very grateful.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And Chiara, would I be correct in saying that there's a documentary being made about your experience?
Yes, The Saint of Brooklyn, coming out, I believe, around September. And it's my whole life in a nutshell, but the main emphasis is this experience and coming out of it a better fighter, a better person, mentally, physically, spiritually. And it's going to go into the International Film Festival and then hopefully on one of these big platforms. And also follow me on Instagram, Speedy_Dituri, Dituri. Follow my boxing videos. And if you want any advice or just want to like talk about what you're going through, you can message me as well. And I don't mind, helping you out or just giving you some motivation or positivity. So yeah.
Fantastic. Well, we'll include those links in the video description. And I cannot wait to see that documentary. And if there's anything we can do to promote it here on the channel, let us know. Chiara, it has been so lovely to speak with you, and I really, really appreciate your time on the channel. I know there's going to be people watching this who find your story incredibly inspirational, and the fact that the documentary is coming out is going to bring your story to countless others and share what for many is a terrifying experience, but will speed up people's recovery just through knowing your story. So that's a really wonderful thing.
100%. And thank you for having me again. And I hope that this helps somebody. I'm sure it will, but I hope that I can help somebody towards their recovery. So thank you again.
Absolutely. It's great to meet you, Chiara, and keep up the good work, and best of luck in your boxing career.
Thank you.
Okay, take care. Bye-bye.